A little earlier in the course, I talked about some complementary technologies for working with XML, and one of those is XPath, which is what we're going to cover in this section. XPath is a W3C standard for accessing data in XML content, and it's a pretty fundamental part of some other XML technologies like XSLT, which we'll look at in a little bit, XQuery, and some others. Essentially, XPath allows you to define a path into an XML document. And you can kind of think of this as being analogous to the way that directory paths work in a file system, right? So folders are sort of like tags that contain content, and file names are, content of tags. And so you can have a path in a directory structure. You can also have the same kind of path in an XML document structure. You can learn a lot more about XPath at this URL on the W3C's website. What I'm going to do in the rest of this section is just give some practical examples for how XPath works, and then we'll take it for a spin. Probably the best way to see what I mean by defining a path into a document is to take a look at a real example. Suppose we had an HTML document represented in tree form like this. Now, suppose we wanted to get a reference to this title tag right here. We could define a path into the XML content by writing something like this, a / HTML, and then another slash, and then head, and then another slash, and then title. And that essentially means starting at the HTML tag, go down to the head tag, and then go down to the title tag. Okay, suppose we wanted to do something a little bit more advanced. Suppose we wanted to get references to these 3 paragraph tags. Now remember, in file systems, file names have to be unique. But in XML, you can have the same name of a tag anywhere you want. So in this case, we would write / HTML, then / body to get down to the body tag, and then / P. Now that would give us all 3 paragraph tags. If we only wanted, say, this paragraph tag, then we would modify the path expression by putting what's called a predicate expression at the end of the path. In this case, a bracket with the number 1 in there. And this may be a little bit confusing if you're used to other programming languages where arrays are indexed using 0 as a base. So in this case, it's 1 based. That would give me the first paragraph tag. Let's review some important XPath concepts, and then we'll take it out for a drive because learning about XPath is actually probably the best way is just to do it. XPath is a very compact syntax, and it's pretty quick to learn. The path expression is a series of what are called location steps. So for example, when I wrote, / HTML and then / body, each one of those is a location step through the document. There's something called the context node. That's where the path evaluation starts from. And in more advanced scenarios using XPath, you can change the context node to be whatever you want. Now, I'm not going to do that here, but you should just be aware that it's possible and that it's essentially the node where you start evaluating the path from. There's the axis. The axis is the relation between the context and the selected nodes by the path. So you start at the context node, you end up at the selected nodes, and that path is called the axis. There are also what we call predicates, and I kind of showed an example in the previous slide when I put that little bracket with a 1 on the paragraph tag to narrow down my selection. Predicates are further refinements to the selection process. You can think of them almost as a kind of filtering method. All right, let's take a look at some XPath examples, and then we'll take out XPath for a spin. Let's take a look at some simple examples. At the very top, you see the /. That path expression simply says, select the root tag in the document. The next example, / root tag, also selects the root tag, but only if it happens to be named, in this example, root tag. If I had / first tag or something else, then it would select the root as long as it was named that. The next example with 2 / says, select all the elements named tag name, but regardless of where they are found in the document. So if I've had tag name elements scattered throughout the file, then this would get all of them. The next example, the text with the parentheses, selects the text content of the current node. And there's a couple of different functions you can use, but text is one of them. The next example, @name, basically says select the name attribute of the current node. So you select attributes by putting the @ symbol in front of them. And then the 2 periods means select the parent of the current node. And that's kind of how a directory structure works as well. When you say in a directory, in a command prompt, you type in cd and then 2 periods, that means go up a directory. And in XPath, it's the same thing. There are some more advanced examples. So for example, I can say /doc/chapter5, which selects the 5th chapter under the doc tag. If I wanted to get the last paragraph element and I didn't know how many there were, I could use the last open and close paren example there in the second line. The third line, /body/p, with a predicate expression of @class equals A, selects the p tags under the body element as long as they have a class attribute that's equal to the letter A. And I could put whatever name I wanted in there. And then finally, the last example, the 2 forward slashes and then p, and then @class, the word and, followed by @style, says select all the p tags in the document as long as they have both a class and a style attribute. So this hopefully gives you a little bit of a semblance of how powerful XPath can be while still remaining relatively simple to write. But again, probably the best way to learn this is to actually take it out and use it. So let's do that next.